Welcome to the Moments That Matter podcast. My name is Laura Escamilla. I am your host.
And I am Isaac Escamilla, your co-host.
Today we have our good friend Mary Damion. She is with Vamos Scholarship, which is located in McAllen, Texas, and she is the executive director. So thank you, Mary, for being here.
Thank you, Laura and Isaac, for having me here. I was happy to get the invitation when I heard about it.
We'd love to hear all about the organization, but first let's start with you introducing yourself and what your role is, and tell us a little bit about Vamos.
As you mentioned, I'm executive director and I've been with Vamos going on 2 years, but I'm not new to Vamos. I served as a volunteer many years ago when they first got started.
Good.
And the fact that I spent 34 years in higher education in all aspects that have to do with bringing in new students and providing student services was fitting for me when the opportunity came up. The scholarship program is about helping students that come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And so they apply and we select our top students based on their academic merit and financial need.
Fantastic.
Can you talk about the main opportunities? Because I know Vamos has a few opportunities. It's not just one scholarship like my scholarship. We just have the one, but you are handling what I think 3 different scholarships. Can you tell us a little bit about each one?
We offer 3 scholarships. And so what we call the Vamos Traditional Scholarship is the first scholarship that was established. And with time, a second scholarship was established through an endowment, and that's the HSF Vamos. And then at some point, we partnered with UTRGV and we established the UTRGV Vamos Scholarship. They all focus on students who have financial need. And so they're very similar, but slightly different. The criteria is basically the same: students with financial need and students that reside in the 3-county area that we service, which is Hidalgo, Star, and Cameron County.
Okay.
Traditional Vamos students apply directly with us. HSF students apply directly to their website. UTRGV students apply on the UTRGV.
So we just had Teresa with UTRGV Scholarship Office on, and she indicated that a lot of those scholarships that are deadlining soon or have already deadlined. So I assume that is the Vamos UTRGV deadline that's going to close February 15th.
February 15th is the
Coming up.
deadline for
Coming
the
up.
UTRGV scholarship.
And that scholarship is for high school seniors, right? All of these scholarships are for high school seniors?
High school seniors, and one of the requirements for all 3 scholarships that the students be U.S. citizens or permanent residents.
Okay.
For the UTRGV scholarship, students must graduate in the top 25% of their, of course, enroll there specifically. It's a scholarship for students attending there. And students may receive up to $10,000 over a 4-year period. It is renewable, provided students meet all the requirements. It also involves a leadership program that students learn about once they apply.
Oh, awesome. I didn't realize that. And then we have the other scholarship that's going to deadline soon, also February 8th, is the HSF Vamos one. So you just mentioned that they applied to that one over HSF
Yeah, so
website.
on their website, they create their login and apply on their portal. All 3 links are available on our website. of
Okay.
course. And students must apply directly to them, submit all documents to them, to HSF, and they go through 2 phases. One is the initial phase where they apply by the deadline of February 8th. And if students are still needing a little more work, perhaps a recommendation did not arrive on time, then they have a little bit of time. And they transition to phase 2. Once the deadlines pass and applications are reviewed, then we collaborate with both UTRGV and HSF to select students.
Does Vamos matches the funds that are available to these organizations in a
These
sense,
2,
or they're
these 2
managed though?
scholarships were established through endowments, so the matching has been done already.
Oh, okay. Established
Fantastic.
already.
Okay, great.
And is the HSF renewable also?
It is a renewable scholarship. Students do receive up to $20,000
Over the 4 years.
over 4 years, and students can select the university of their choice, provided it's an accredited institution. And difference here is that the scholarship funds go directly to students.
Oh, okay. That's a unique distinction.
So it's beneficial to students because it doesn't affect the cost of attendance, their budget, cost of attendance, wherever they're attending.
And we had that conversation again with Teresa, where they do stacking of scholarships to
Mhm.
try to get to cost of attendance. So this HSF one, the funds would go directly to the student so they could use those for any of their necessities to pay
Correct.
books and to pay living, that kind of
Housing.
thing. Wow, that is great to know.
It's a
And
benefit to students, and most of these students go across Texas
Sure.
and out of state. They're primarily the ones attending Ivy League institutions on the East Coast.
Fantastic.
Very few stay
local.
in this area. Mhm.
Wonderful. So let's talk about the big scholarship, the Vamos traditional scholarship. And I say big because I've looked at your website and you go through all the criteria and the things that they must turn in for this. So I'd love to dive deeper into this one. So this one is already open and available to students, high school students again. Deadline, is that
April
correct?
3rd. It closes on April 3rd, and applications are coming in daily. For this scholarship, students may receive up to $20,000
Also over 4 years?
over a 4-year period, and it's based on financial need. Everybody's situation varies.
Definitely.
Different depending on their family and their economic situation. So they may not get all 20,000, but they'll get up to $20,000 over a 4-year period. And yes, our checklist is quite lengthy.
Yes.
And so the reason for that is we want to make sure that students have true financial need
Right.
because there is tremendous need across the valley.
Oh,
And
yes.
the stories, the stories.
Mhm.
We
here.
know them. We hear them. They're friends of ours.
Mm.
They're families that are close to us. So we
Yes.
definitely understand.
And so that is the reason why we ask for additional documents. Students must be U.S. citizens or permanent residents. We require that they provide ACT or SAT scores, student resume. We want to know more about the student.
Mhm.
It's a holistic review, and we require their high school transcript, letters of recommendation from teachers, principals, school staff that have worked closely with them, their student aid index now,
Yes.
and their financial aid award letter where they've been accepted, their admission letter, and of course that they enroll in an accredited
Right.
institution.
And this is high school seniors also, Hidalgo, Star, and
All
Cameron
all
County.
three scholarships are specifically for
High school
graduating high
seniors.
school seniors.
Fantastic. Okay, good.
And then we require a 600-word essay. And this is where we learn more about the
Right.
student
Mhm.
through this essay. And so we detail exactly what it is that we want to hear. Tell us your story and tell us your story as compelling as possible so that we learn more about you and your
Mhm.
situation, your family situation. And over the course of time, I've gone back and looked at older applications
Yes.
because some are still there.
Of course.
And the stories are very similar.
Yes, I imagine so. Now, is any part of that lengthy process optional? Or is everything that you're asking for 100% required
It's
in order to move?
100%
Okay,
required.
great. That's good to know because we discussed yesterday about other scholarships that do have certain portions that are optional and some students don't do them. And there
And
some
they're
other student
optional
did.
to give more information, but
Yes.
if they want to. And we've had a discussion about a good reason to take the SAT and ACTs that we have discussed before in other episodes, but it's a lot of people aren't taking them because they're like, most schools are optional, but we always push that ACT and SAT scores are so important for scholarships and for merit
Mhm.
scholarships to school.
Absolutely.
And we definitely encourage students to take it to get admitted to a university. They're optional, but for all of these purposes, it really gives a good indication of your ability. And to compare when you're in our area, like you said, there's many students who have financial need. You need something to differentiate
And
them.
that's why we require the scores, but primarily because it's a good indicator of success in the
Mhm.
first year of college.
Definitely.
Second, students who submit a complete admissions packet or application to any university would typically get admitted much earlier
Mhm.
and do not go through the second review phase. So they're able to secure admission much earlier, secure housing, parking, and all those things
Mhm.
that go along with
Yeah, it sounds like it
admission.
really facilitates the
It
process and
does.
pushes it forward pretty steadily,
Mhm.
pretty easily.
Definitely agree with that. And so thank you for going over those three. Can you give some advice on the people interested in applying for Vamos on what to look for on your end and advice on how to make their scholarship application really strong? I imagine looking at those letters of recommendation, who is writing those for them, and those kind of things need to really make a difference.
I see that when students work closely with their high school counselors,
Mhm.
their teachers, their English teacher primarily, they tend to stand out above other applicants because they put effort into it. They took time to work on this. And by the time they submit their application, it's a strong
Mhm.
application. And again, it's going to stand out above others.
Right. So having somebody review
Hmm.
it, guide you through the writing process of not just your essay, right, but these letters of rec. You want to have somebody write a letter of rec for you that knows you really well and can speak to your character and your abilities, and not just have anybody do
Absolutely.
it.
Request letters with plenty of
Yeah.
time because sometimes people run out of time and they're requesting letters at the last
Last
minute,
minute. So
and
with an April 3rd deadline, these letters should have already been
they
requested or
should have been
being
requested.
requested now so
Mhm.
that they have enough time to get
Hopefully.
those. Because the recommendation letter you're noting on here are teachers, counselors, principals, or other professional staff. And all of these individuals are really busy and wear multiple hats in their schools.
Absolutely.
So they need
Yes.
enough time to do this for you and at least be respectful of their time, if anything else. And
Of course.
obviously, you don't want to be submitting something last minute
Mhm.
if you can help it.
And we
Right.
have firsthand experience with that with our own children where they asked way ahead of time.
Mhm.
And sometimes some people are
Life
very
gets in the way.
Mhm.
incredibly busy,
Right.
and
So,
we had to plan B, a
right.
couple of them,
Mhm.
and
So, yeah, our son, for his application to Baylor, they require letters of rec, and he knew who he was going to ask, and he did, and he properly sent an email making the request, submitted his resume, which was something I strongly suggest when you're asking for a letter of rec, because they give them an idea of a full picture of the classes you're taking and that kind of thing. So he did all that, and then we kept waiting. The school sends the email. We kept waiting, and it kept saying nothing yet. His other letters of rec were submitted, and we're so nervous because there's a deadline for the application, and we did it. We asked months in advance, and still it was never done. And he would send a friendly email. It'd say, "Yes, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it." Nothing. And he got really nervous, and we even messaged the school to see if how it would affect his application. So we requested a different one, but it wasn't going to be as strong as that person who was his teacher, had been his teacher
Mhm.
for years. And then application got submitted and he was accepted to the university, and then his teachers, "Here's the letter." And it's okay. That was a little late,
A
but
bit late.
yeah, a bit late, but
it was a little too close for us. It was a little scary.
yeah. And so they just have life. And it
Mhm.
wasn't that he was being malicious. Things happen and they lose track of
And
time.
plus, there are a number of students
And people,
requesting
yes, lots of
letters
people
of
Definitely.
asking.
recommendation. So, yes.
And keeping track of all of that, it makes a big difference. So for you, for your application, a strong essay, because that's what you use to review, to look at, to get to know a student, and obviously the things that they're writing, they should be reviewed, and that's one of your main recommendations to
That's one
work
of my
with it.
main recommendations, their essay. And then spend time on the resume too, because the resume is also a good indicator of who the student is. Primarily, are the students that we select are overachievers. They're very busy. They hold jobs. They
Yes.
participate in extracurricular. They take the more rigorous coursework, and they still find time to volunteer at school and in their communities. And so that's where they can tell their story and what they've been involved in
The
through
things
the
they're
rest
passionate about,
and the
right?
things they're passionate about
Right.
through the resume. And of course, their essay is where they're going to go highlight all that.
That's very much in line with things that we have discussed before, and so important because that is, like you said, that's their opportunity to
Hmm.
to tell people who they are. And it's very much like us professionally that we do our resumes, where we've been, our experience, our expertise, and those things. That it's no different than it is for them.
And I have a question about the resumes because there's a couple of different schools of thought, and teachers and friends of mine will ask me questions about the way they reviewed. I know some teachers, not necessarily in my school district, but that work in other neighboring school districts, that when they have classes, they resume build as a class. And their focus is primarily on dressing up this resume, making it look as modern and as sleek as possible. They have a picture of the student and just a very colorful, very presentable essay. And then other teachers dissuade them from doing that because so many resumes, if you're going to use it for job purposes, which is its primary focus, run it through an algorithm. And the algorithm doesn't see the pictures, doesn't see the colors, doesn't see the dressing at
That
all.
is correct.
It is specifically just looking for highlights and bullet
Hmm.
points and then aggregating those and matching them against a rubric, and that is it.
Yeah.
So where do we draw that line? Do we make the effort to make it look beautiful, or does it matter at all? Does it depend?
I think I would discourage the photo because in our case, when we're reviewing essays, we want to be as fair as possible.
Sure.
Mhm.
And so it's best to be looking
Just at content.
at content
I see. Okay. Yes.
and numbers, of course, academic merit and
Definitely.
such.
Yeah, those items that will speak for themselves,
Mhm.
right? The items will speak to their character and what their involvement is. It's a very different school of thought between the teachers that teach them to make it as elegant and
Yeah.
beautiful or otherwise. So I guess I'll tell the teachers that just put it together in a fashion that state the facts and only the facts, probably going to be good enough.
And my knowledge of how universities hold career fairs, for example,
Sure.
and bring in prospective employers to interview students either for internships or job opportunities
Right.
upon graduation. They are not encouraging students to add photographs. Primarily, it's your academic history and your work experience,
Yes.
internships, and things of that sort.
At this level, for the
Any
student level.
for
Yes.
this, yes, and any research or publications that they've had an opportunity to be involved in at the college level.
I understand that.
So
Well, I
I'm
appreciate that information.
right when I'm helping our kids when they did their college stuff, it was very much just content based. And but once we started switching to they're graduating and they're doing professional stuff, I did help them fix it up because for me professionally, I think you want it to be organized and you want it to look professional and complete and not just black and white. You want it to stand out a little bit. But for college and academic purposes, we definitely just went with the straight information.
Yes.
Give me the information.
And that really goes back to the amount of applicants that you get. And I imagine it's a very high amount of applicants.
It is.
And being able to separate the students from one another. And if you have to look through a lot of unnecessary superfluous detail that slows the process down, you really just want to compare apples to apples all as much as you possibly
And well,
can.
we have a committee that serves in that capacity, and so everything is reviewed very
Yes.
thoroughly.
Yeah.
And one of the things we encourage students to do is list membership to organizations and honor societies that they've been
But, yeah.
inducted, accepted to, because again, that's part of telling the story of the student and highlighting their success.
Would you say when you're thinking of a student and their leadership abilities, is it necessary that the students say, oh, I was captain of this team or I was captain of this? They can demonstrate leadership in other ways and that they organized something instead than they were necessarily, because there's only so many leadership roles and titles available to students. There's only so many captains on a team and so many heads of things, but there's other ways for these students to demonstrate leadership.
Sure, yes. Just coordinating, collaborating, and all that, because again, it teaches them what the real world is about. And when they go out and
Right.
into the workforce, they already have a little bit of knowledge of what it takes.
We had Yara Doyle on from the food bank, and she gave us some examples of students who had organized food drives
Mhm.
at their school all on their own
Mhm.
and put it together and then turn that money or the product over to them. And I think that's amazing. I think that's probably
Yeah.
the type of thing you're looking for, correct?
A food drive, a blood drive, things of that sort.
I just want to emphasize, like I said, a lot of people, when they see your leadership skills and your leadership ability and what you put on a resume, that you don't conflate it with just titles of things,
Yeah,
right?
they don't necessarily have to hold an office
Or be
in an
a class
organization.
president or anything of that.
Of
There's
course
a
not.
way
There are many other ways.
to prove that.
And that's an important point. There are many other ways to demonstrate that leadership ability.
Mhm.
And for parents that are unfamiliar with the scholarship application process, and that's really why we do this podcast, is guide parents to help their students through this. Is there any guidance, resources that Mamos offers that can help them guide them through the process? Do you have stuff on your website that has detailed information? Any advice for parents as their kids are pursuing these scholarships?
We have information on our website, but primarily it's about the scholarship requirements and deadlines and our mentoring program also. But there are a lot of resources and other resources that are helpful, and that's primarily why I include them in our brochure.
Mhm.
So they have helpful link that can lead them to other resources.
Definitely. Definitely.
Can you talk to me about some of those resources?
For example, College Board, they
Mhm.
offer a lot of resources when you go onto their website. FAFSA, if you log on to the FAFSA website, students and parents begin to learn about the process and what it requires, what it takes, the maximum award, things of that sort.
Understanding the
Mhm.
terms and things of that nature.
Understanding terms and
And I know
deadlines.
College Board also runs the SATs, so they do offer a lot of insight onto how to go through that process and getting your scores and
Correct.
submitting them and that kind of thing.
So there's three different scholarships, right? There's the Vamos, that's the main one, and then there's the HSF version, and there's the UTRGV version. If I'm a student that somehow meets the criteria for all three, can the student apply for all
We
three or
we
steered to one or the other?
we encourage students to apply for all three,
Okay, that's fine. I wanted that clarification because I wasn't
but
sure.
we select them for one
Oh yeah,
scholarship.
you can't win them all. But you might win one of them.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
make sure that they're only selected for one of the three scholarships
Okay.
because, of course, we're able to help more students that way.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
But it's good to know that they can, especially if they meet the criteria for all three. And I'm sure you do see students that
We
meet the
do.
criteria for all three.
We do.
And I know you just mentioned the mentorship program. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What that is? I really love that component to your scholarship and maybe some of the success stories of the students that have been.
So our first and second year students are matched with peer mentors that are juniors and seniors in college. And then our juniors and seniors are matched with professional mentors. And at all levels, it works out very nicely because in the first and second year, students are guided by somebody who's already been through the process. And typically they're attending the same school, perhaps in the same major. We try to match them as closely as
Sure.
possible.
Mhm.
And the professional mentor, of course, they offer a wealth of knowledge and that relationship that they establish. Many of our scholarship recipients are still staying in touch with their mentors.
That's
And
great.
are the professional mentors individuals in the community, or were they once also Vamos recipients?
Some of our mentors now are alumni,
Hmm.
and they date back to 20 some years ago when
That's
they
amazing.
That's
received
incredible.
the
That's really neat. I
scholarship.
like that a lot.
And we have a number of mentors across the state because some individuals want to help. They lived here at one point and served as mentors, and then they moved away, but they want to stay involved. And so they managed to mentor
Right.
over the phone,
And
email, and such.
we
That's
had an
nice.
experience with, we did an episode of the Texas National Bank Foundation, and their president of the bank, Joe Quiroga, was a part of Vamos and a mentor, and he was very active with Vamos, which is what inspired him to help his organization create a foundation. So you can see that it extends,
I
right?
mean,
Just not to the one student, but just helping the community in general. So I love that about Vamos. I think it's great. And do you have any stories you can share of students who were successful through this? I know you all have lots of students in the community who do great things.
we do. We have many stories. I'm going to highlight three.
Absolutely.
So we have a student, for example, that graduated in fall of 2022. She attended UTRGV, majored in accounting. She applied for a job prior to graduation, competed with people across the country for this employment opportunity, and was the individual selected for a job as a staff auditor with Ernst & Young at their
Fantastic.
San Antonio office. And so that makes us really proud of her
Right.
because she competed with everybody else and she continues to work with them and she's very successful. We stay in touch with her. We have another student who attended UPenn. She's a more recent graduate and she also competed at the international level for that matter. And she is a consultant for an agency in Houston. These students were
Wow.
right here in the Rio
Mhm.
Grande Valley at one point.
Doing bigger and better things. We
And
love that.
yes, and they come from extremely humble backgrounds, had no coaching at home from parents or
Mhm.
friends. They primarily did a lot of this on their own.
Figured
Yeah.
it
The
out.
first one of their kind in their family to go and make
Yes,
a huge impact.
and then what happens is there's that ripple effect because they're able then to help siblings, relatives, friends, and they serve as the role models for other students.
To everyone in that community, anybody who knew them growing up, I love to see that people that I knew when I was a kid growing up and becoming incredibly successful. It's like, oh, wow, you did great. I knew that you would.
Yeah.
but it's good to see it. It's
It
nice to
is
see it.
wonderful. And then we have Dr. Cruz also that we are very proud of his accomplishments as well. He comes from, again, extreme poverty from the Edcal Tulsa area. He graduated in 2001 from Edcal Tulsa, valedictorian of his graduating class, went off to Yale University, earned a master's in public health, and then went away to University of North Texas School of Osteopathic Medicine
Mm.
and is practicing here in the Rio Grande Valley
I love to
as
hear that. That's
an
nice.
oncologist.
So would you say the common, and I know this is goes to that you all help students financial need, would you say the most common challenge for students in our area when seeking a higher education is finances, or is it more that, like you mentioned, they're first in their family to do this and they don't have guidance, and I know they experience challenges. I meet these kids every day, but would you say, would it be more financial, or would it be more that there's no guidance because nobody's done it before them?
With a combination of the two, I can't say it's one more than the other. It's a combination of the two. We're just fortunate that we have extremely wonderful high school counselors that
Hmm.
see the motivation of these students, or they see the academic merit and talent,
Hmm. They
and
see potential.
they see potential. Exactly, that's the word I was looking for. And they begin to help coach them and steer them in the right direction because sometimes they have that dream, but they don't really know how to get there.
And we see it through our scholarship program all the time, and very capable students. And we try to help as many students as we can. But on a personal level, I won't mention his name because I haven't asked permission, but a friend of our daughter's that came from extreme poverty, did not have a support system, bounced around home to home, and was taken in by a friend. And his goals to go to college and to do well and to finish. And he's about to finish with his bachelor's degree. He got into real estate and trying to be on his own and work jobs on the side, and just to see his determination. And from the second we met him when they were in high school, I could see that he had so much potential because he was just charismatic
I
and
agree.
a great student and kind. No matter what life brought, he was
I knew
still
he was going to be
kind.
successful. We
Yeah.
knew he'd be successful.
Yeah. And we still keep in touch with him just through the community because he's
Mhm.
in the community doing stuff all the time and he's here. He works so hard. And so I can see how wonderful it must be for these counselors to spot a student to say, you know what, this person, they have something to them, and to be able to help them get through this process. And gosh, I hope one day he's running his own brokerage and running a company of his own, but
Yes,
just to
indeed.
see,
And
Yes,
I'm sure
indeed.
he'll get there.
yeah, just to see him get through all the steps and with no help and very little guidance as far as parents are concerned, and no money to make this happen, just to get through it is amazing, which is why we exist. And he is one of our scholarship recipients as well. But that had nothing to do. One had nothing to do with the other. We met him very young, and it's amazing to see him go through the process. And you think of our own children, and we're like, they're so fortunate.
They're so fortunate.
Yeah.
Don't realize how
Yeah.
fortunate they are.
Yeah, but like you said, when you mentioned that having students who have potential, he is like the first thing that came to mind because they can do great things and give back to the community, and he does that in spades. And that's amazing to hear about the stories of your student.
And most of our students come from very caring and loving families, but life is not fair to everybody, and
Hmm.
poverty exists. And many of our students, their families immigrated here
Mhm.
with a dream. That's all they had. And they worked hard and they got their kids through schools and eventually they connected with
And
opportunities.
it looks different for everybody, that financial need, that what they carry. You won't just see a student and say, oh, they are financially needy. You mean that doesn't look like that anymore? And we had this discussion, as Isaac mentioned, with Yara from Food Bank, that the food insecure, it's not the typical person you
No,
think.
no.
It's for her, it's every day. You could be your neighbor, it could be
Mhm.
your friend. It doesn't look the same for
For
everybody.
everybody.
It's really important that they convey that to you through the process and doing all the necessary paperwork.
And thank you for sharing those stories with us.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. We're so proud of our students and just happy that we're able to make a difference in the lives of so many students,
Absolutely.
just as you do through your
Yeah.
scholarship.
And that's, I will say again and again, that is my favorite part, is meeting our scholarship recipients and getting to know them personally. We don't have a mentorship program like Valmos does, so we don't get to interact with them daily. or often when we do get to meet them and see them when they volunteer with our events and when we get to spend time with them. They're such amazing young adults, and there's so many wonderful young adults. So I love that. And let's get to the really important part. How do we get money to fund these scholarships?
Well,
How can people in the community get involved
there are
with?
many ways to get involved. Right now, we're in the middle of our primary fundraiser, our big fundraiser, which is the annual golf tournament for
Mhm,
Vamos. And this will be our 28th annual golf tournament.
mhm.
And so we have a lot of supporters across the Rio Grande
That's
Valley.
great. We have a lot of friends that
Play in
participate
it.
every year.
You all throw amazing golf
Yeah.
tournaments, that's for
That's what we heard. That's what we
Yes.
heard.
And that's what I've been hearing since I joined Vamos.
Make sure that tournament, that golf
Yeah.
tournament, is good.
Sometimes I start getting calls early in the summer trying to get details about
Save that date. Yeah.
saving the date
Good idea.
and how they can sponsor and how they can sign up to play. So it's through our golf tournament that we primarily raise funds. And throughout the year, we have other opportunities to raise essential funds for our scholarships. We are very blessed that we have a lot of support through our banks in the community, some of our hospitals, and businesses across the valley, and they sponsor teams, they buy raffle tickets.
Right. It takes a village to
Mhm.
do what we do. It takes
Truly.
everybody in the community.
Do the whole sponsorship and a number of things. And so that's how we raise a lot of our funds for our scholarships. Throughout the year, we write grants and we also receive straight out donations
Yeah.
from individuals that are generous and kind and want to give to Vamos. And so that's how we are able to fund our scholarships.
Are there ways for individuals in the community to volunteer to help Vamos in other ways if they can't financially? You mentioned committees to review things. Is there anything else that can be done?
We're always looking for mentors.
Okay.
So we need
For that
volun-
professional aspect of
Professionals
it.
in the
the
community.
For the
profession-
juniors and seniors you mentioned. that-
Correct. Professional aspect. So if they're interested in helping, that's one way to get involved. The other way to get involved is to help sell raffle tickets or help us connect to sponsors that could potentially help us.
Sure.
So there are just a number of ways to get involved.
Thank you.
Let us know if there are any employment opportunities out there that students can
That's
connect
so
with
important, right?
when they're to graduate college.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Amazing. So is there anything we left out that you'd like to mention about the scholarship opportunities or sponsorship opportunities that are available?
We've covered a lot. One thing I didn't mention was that I also encourage students to become familiar with GAP grants. A lot of universities across the country offer GAP grants and they call them different things. For example, UTRGV calls theirs tuition advantage.
Okay.
So that's another way to fill that unmet need. And not necessarily for our students specifically, but there are students that don't qualify for scholarships, but they can qualify for one of those GAP grants.
We have discussed this before. A lot of universities have set up a system where if they're under a certain income level, they will help them find the funding that they need after they have received normal financial aid, after they have received other scholarships, whatever is that gap of need
Of
between
unmet need.
of unmet need, which is after all the money has been applied, you still have unmet need to reach your cost of attendance of going to school, which would be
Exactly.
tuition fees and living. You're talking about these programs that can help fill that. Tuition assistance. I know many state universities have this opportunity for
And then
students.
when students are out, especially those that leave the area and go away to school, there are a lot of services that students do not become familiar with. And that's one of the things that we help our students with. And through their mentors and our constant contact with them, we ask them to become familiar with all the services out there.
That's great.
Food pantries, counseling services, tutoring.
Very important.
And
Just
then, of
knowing
course,
what's available to them while they're away.
And a lot of these resources are included with whatever costs they're already paying and fees they're already paying through school. They're just
Correct.
free to them.
Yes.
They just don't know about
They're
it.
part of their services. And then for those students that haven't submitted their Pell Grant, their FAFSA application, it's a new application, but there are resources out there to help them apply and answer questions. And so I encourage students to call us if they need help, if they have questions and need
All right.
assistance.
And going back to the 3 different scholarships, if any student has any question about either one of the scholarships, they can always call you and you'll be able to provide, even if they come from different places or a partner.
Correct. They can
You
call our
will-
office.
You guys have all the answers.
We
As much
Try.
as
We
possible.
try.
will try to assist as best as possible,
Or point them in the right
or
direction.
point them in the right direction.
Fantastic.
And just so we can share that information, your website is vamosscholars.org. And that is where they can go get more information on all 3 scholarships and links to apply to the ones that are external and contact you if they need help.
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary, for your time and
Thank
sharing
you,
with us.
Laura.
It's been really
Thank you,
great.
Isaac.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.